All right. Well, thanks, Nash. So I'm Joe Garza. I'm a senior solution engineer with Copado. I focus on our Copado Robotic Testing solution. I've been in the quality assurance testing space for the last decade now. I've done all aspects of testing. I started off as a manual QA, went into automation, led quality assurance testing teams, and now I've been specializing in the Salesforce test automation space for the last 5 years. So I was supposed to have a partner in crime today, Corey, but he decided just to leave me in the dust and just hand the keys off to me. So today you'll just be listening into me and interacting with me here today. But Corey, he is one of our client solutions directors, so he helps with our customers get onboarded with Copado. So I'll start off a little bit here in regards to who Copado is, if you guys haven't heard of Copado before, but then we're going to primarily jump into what test automation is, why you should care about it, and why it really is important today in this AI-driven world. So many people have heard of Copado before. We're very well known for our CI/CD solution around DevOps. We've made some changes. We have some other solutions as well, but a recent release is Agentia. And what Agentia is it's really combining all of our solutions in one with agentic capabilities throughout. So it helps in regards to the DevOps process, being able to make your deployments, testing, and having AI to help build and perform any other step throughout the way. Now, in regards to Agentia Pro, what it does offer, again, it's basically the full package of solutions combined into one. In regards to the testing side of things, well, you're going to see some of that today, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time going over it. But we offer solutions that help out with the automation, the manual aspects, and AI to help generate tests, whether that's for manual execution or automated tests. But now let's talk about testing and automation. So I always think of Einstein's quote of insanity when I think about manual testing, because in essence, when it comes to doing manual QA, especially regression testing, you're doing the same thing over and over again every single release and expecting a different result. So per Einstein, manual QAs, they're insane. And I suppose I can agree with that sentiment given the fact that I was a manual QA before. Now, the way that I like to explain what test automation is, I generally like to think of it in simplistic terms in regards to things that people are familiar with. So think about manual testing. It's going in and just clicking around in the UI and validating that something is working correctly. But automation applies to many aspects of our life. In this example, washing our clothes. So in the past, in human history, we did it by hand. We'd fill up a bucket of water, we'd dip our garments in, we'd scrub them, wring them out, hang them up to dry. And it's a time-consuming process because you have to do that for each and every individual clothing item. So then we got washing machines, and now we just throw them in, we click a button, cleans it for us. But the time that each one of these takes is relatively similar. So why would I care about having that washing machine when it costs me about $1,000 to start with it? Well, it might take me the same amount of time to complete one load of laundry by hand as it does inside that washing machine. But while my clothes are in that washing machine, I can do other things. So it frees up my time to give me time back so I can focus on doing other things. And if you put that at scale, you think about a laundromat or a hotel. They have all these blankets, all these sheets that they need to clean day in, day out. It'd be impossible to keep up with that type of workload when you're doing it all by hand. Having multiple washing machines, just throw them all in. Now they focus on something else. And at a certain point in software development, it kind of becomes just like that hotel. If you're doing everything by hand or doing everything manually in regards to testing everything, eventually you have so many different things you need to test that you no longer can keep up with the pace. When I started doing QA, automation was really always this thing that the companies that I worked for and the teams that I worked with, they saw it as an option. It was one of those things that was a nice to have, but it really wasn't necessary until you got to a certain point. But it comes with a lot of benefits. It allows you to be able to deliver faster because you're able to test sooner. Things are broken sooner. You don't have to wait for that manual validation of someone going in and testing every single thing. It can find more errors as well due to the fact that that removes human error. So occasionally people miss a bug just because they weren't paying attention, they weren't dialed in enough, or they didn't think of different scenarios as to how they can do that. But ultimately, if you move faster, you're able to test more, test faster, you lower the costs, your developers can move on into more important work as well. Now, if you haven't seen this type of chart before, depending on where you find a bug, it allows you to adapt sooner, of course. So if you find that when you're just thinking about the requirements and you proactively resolve that before it actually develops into a bug, of course it's going to be cheaper. You don't have to go back and fix things. But as things move forward and progress in the software development lifecycle, the more it costs to fix, especially when we get into production. And there's multiple reasons behind that. Code is no longer fresh in mind. We have to go back and review it, understand if we change this code, what downstream impacts that's going to have. So it becomes much more costly versus if we find it sooner, it's obviously much more cheaper and quicker and easier to handle that. Now, the other thing today that makes automation much more required today is just the fact that the pace of delivery and software development it's moved forward because of AI. And one of the things that I like about thinking of AI in regards to where it came from to where it's today is really just Will Smith eating spaghetti. We've seen these advances, and I think a lot of us, when AI first was coming out, we're like, yeah, it's kind of a cool gimmick. But now we're also starting to see the value that it can do and some of the cool things that it can do, like video content creation. But when it comes to the development side of things, well, people are finding it to be helpful in regards to actually creating code that's useful. And someone mentioned it earlier here that it's about 60% of it's useful. Some of it might be fluff, but even if it gets you 60% of that out of the way, that's a huge improvement versus having to go everything from scratch. But the challenge comes in regards to what type of burden that puts on the team as well. But I pulled up some numbers in regards to using GitHub Copilot. So unbiased example here, unbiased numbers. And what I liked about GitHub Copilot's metrics in regards to their efficiency boost with using AI, it was very conservative. So I think we've all seen huge numbers out there, multiple times faster, hundreds times faster. And there's might be some truth in that. I mean, I think that these numbers are probably a little bit more conservative, but it definitely depends on the task at hand. But what was interesting is that 90% of people are using GitHub Copilot are developers, 40 to 50% use that daily, and they're seeing anywhere between 20 to 55% faster in regards to what they're building. In addition to that, when we looked at the productivity boost, that was also interesting to me. Well, if you're doing things 20 to 55% faster, why is it only 5 to 15% a net productivity boost? But you think about that, the developers are moving faster, but there's still other things that have to happen as part of the software development lifecycle, right? Testing side of it creates bottlenecks. People still need to validate everything. So even if the code is being built quicker, well, there's still other pieces that have to also adapt to that same pace. And then lastly, the other part that I found was interesting is that 50% of all code is being created by AI today, but 61% for Java. What I found interesting about that is, traditionally speaking, automation is built in Java and Selenium. It's more commonly built in that framework than any other one out there. So my take in regards to why we see more with Java is because AI is being introduced into uh, test automation, but just not quite as high of a scale as other entities out there in regards to software development. Now, when we think about the QA in this mix, like I was talking about earlier, test automation has always been seen as optional. Pretty much anyone that I've talked to and companies that I've worked with in the past. But as you start a company out or you start building an application, at the start, that workload is so easy for a QA. There's a new feature getting built. Okay, I just got to test that real quick. Good to go. Nothing else on my plate. But then as more and more features get created, well, I have to keep on testing those old things as well to make sure that the developer didn't introduce any new bugs or break any existing functionality. So now that workload compounds and it keeps becoming larger and larger as years go by. And eventually you get to that point where, well, automation is no longer really an option, it's needed. Most teams that I talk to in the Salesforce world, there's much more developers to QA ratios than outside of Salesforce. I commonly see anywhere between 5 developers to 1 tester or 10 developers to 1 tester. Now, when you throw in that productivity boost that AI is giving to the development lifecycle, well, that 1 QA becomes 1 to 6 developers if they're only getting a 20% boost. And again, that's a very conservative number. In the example of 10 developers to 1 QA, if those developers are all using AI to accelerate their delivery, well, now it's 1 QA to 12 developers. And again, that's only still using that conservative 20% number. Quite frankly, I think it is much higher than that. But you can see how that is adding more workload to your testing teams as well. Now, the challenge becomes with this is that there's no way they really can keep up with that pace of testing, especially when it comes from a manual aspect. So without automation and having it be able to run these types of tests for them and take that workload off, it really becomes completely impossible to keep up with that scale of delivery. So with that said, what I'll do next is I'll go ahead and show you how we can leverage AI and automation to help out with this. And Copado makes this easy for you. But I suppose before I go ahead and jump into that, Nash, I'll take a pause here and just see if there are any questions over, what we've discussed to this point. But what I'll be covering next is showing you what this would look like in practice and how we can leverage AI to build out this automation quickly and easily for us.
Sounds good. Any thoughts on QA? Well, let's talk about these big companies like Canada Post. Do you have QA team? How many members?
I have no idea.
How many developers?
More of an observation, but what you're saying about rising development furthering the testing burden is kind of what I was saying about the reducing the cost of AI just means it's easier to build the wrong thing or to build too much code, where less code that's easier to test might be better.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% agree with that, Adam. And, furthering that point as well, and as someone mentioned earlier, 60% of the output of AI was useful, but maybe the other 40% wasn't. It also introduces additional risk because of that. People blindly trust, well, this must be right. It worked this one time. Let's go ahead and ship it. Well, you're introducing more bugs in that way as well.
Right.
Okay, I will just get 2 cents on my own. This is what I told Joe when I asked him to come and tell us. One of the challenges that I see with enterprise clients is regression testing. You go to the migration project. It's 2 years long, carry use cases, you build features, you implement it. Then you go to UAT, somebody sit down on client side and do UAT scenarios. Somebody from the user base will read those scenarios and give you yes or no, pass, fail, and you get it back to rework it if it fails, and they redo it again and it's finished. Yeah. My idea why this is good, and I like this AI side of the business of AI. I like better this side than use AI for development. Because I'm a big believer in low code development and less IT technical depth in the code than in the low code option that we have now. But this is covering gap that I think it's big need on the market, because you want to use time that you ask somebody to build test scripts to do this, what Joe is going to show you. And then when people follow and the scripts and give you yes or no, and this is all already finalized now, it stay working feature of your work that is reusable down the road. With the same amount of work that you use for one time UAT before you go live. Now you have something that's reusable all the way until you die, or your project dies on the end. Any comments? This is kind of what I saw value in what Joe is going to show here. Any comments on QA thing that my way of reading the QA business, and do you have different experience?
I do feel like QA is important in the life cycle of development, but most of the time QA has been overlooked in a lot of organizations. I used to work in a company like the developer. I mean, they are doing the feature development, but eventually they are play the QA role for themselves as well, and there are BAs as well, right? The BA will be like a business requirement on the user story, on the feature like development, but eventually it's like the whoever developed the feature either play as a player and also a judge on the feature. So
it's like Trump in this fund for the
yeah. So it's like it's important but overlooked. That's my feeling. And also like the resource on QA is like think about all the regressional tests, right? Like if you have a 4 or 5 years old org, every time you're adding some on top of the regressional test, it's just impossible for a person to do it within a reasonable time. Because just too many things, not just the like new thing, and also the legacy building, like, even simple something on page layout, like some dynamic field show up by this on this user profile, different user profile. It's just impossible for one person to cover every possible scenario. Yeah, it's just it's a tough role. I feel like if the person will do a good job.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Also, once you add customization to these existing products, like it could be SAP or Salesforce, like when you buy it, the companies tend to add customizations or like building off the shelf building out of the box solutions. Then the regression testing timeline also increases. I have seen projects, the timelines extending because initially the assumption would be like, okay, the testing phase is like 3 weeks or 4 weeks going into it. They have very tight windows to start with. But once you do these tests, that's when all these customization becomes an issue. And I was part of a project last year where our timelines got shifted 2 or 3 times just for this regression phasing to be over.
You're right. We are not living in the simple world with all managed packages, with all customization that we add on the top of it, and now with this helper called Agentforce. Okay, Joe, go ahead. Anybody else has comment? Peter has comment.
Yeah, it's more like what we do. We have between 50 to 20% of QA, and every day all unit tests are executed, no sandboxes before. So if you develop something, you push it to the next level. By the deployment, all the tests are run, and all developers get an email what's failing. So if you change something else is falling apart, you don't recognize. But if you get all the tests from the old org on the next day, you see, oh, I put something in, and that could be related.
Are you talking about
this strategy? How to Apex testing, unit testing. We have also front-end testing every day on each sandbox run.
Okay, hey Joe, it seems Dieter is already doing something. What you're going to show? Let's compare it. Oh, you are having bigger challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah, Peter, sounds like you got some good practices in place. So, I commend you and your team for getting that together. Good job. But yeah, we'll go ahead and show you what this looks like here from the Copado Robotic Testing side of things. And like I mentioned, we'll leverage AI for that. So with our AI platform, we have a multitude of different agents here for us. So anything testing related, we would utilize Test Agent for. For anything building related, if I needed to build something in Salesforce or create unit tests, I'd utilize Build Agent. Plan Agent would help with my user stories, and I can fetch into Copado CI/CD and capture any of the user stories we're working on to get that information back to me. But we'll go ahead and interact with Test Agent here. So I'm going to go ahead and give it my prompt. And what I'm going to do is ask this to go through and create a Copado robotic test case here for me for Salesforce CPQ that creates an opportunity, adds a quote, selects products, configures bundles, edit quotes, and validates the total. And I've given it some context here. So one of the 5 C's, the context that I provided here is going to be related to the products I wanted to use, the discounts that it's going to provide for them, and the quantity. And then also the credentials, the variables that I have set up already here for this. So this is going to be the test that it's proposing here for me. Now our AI also does have agentic capabilities as well. So I have a test job over here prepared that I'm going to have it populate into here for me. Right now, this test job is empty, as we can see. I'm also going to have it run this test job for me as well. So we can see there's 4 on this right now. But again, nothing is running here currently. But
Hey,
now we
George,
can go
just a
ahead.
Is this too fast for you guys when he's switching screens?
Yes.
Can you slow down? We have time if you have time.
Yeah. Yep.
Can you switch the tab just to introduce what is this doing? Because
Yeah.
flashing
No
in
problem.
front of us, it's hard to follow.
Yep. Yeah, so let me take a step back then.
Maybe Joy, are you AI?
I might be a hybrid. But yeah, so I'll explain this a little bit. So what this is right here, this would be a test job in Copado Robotic Testing. It's blank right now. It's a blank slate. Over here is AI. This is the test that it's proposing for what I provided. What it's going to do when I say yes, this test that it's recommending will be here. I'm also going to have it run this test job. So in the other tab that I have pulled up here, this tracks my runs for that test job. So hopefully that's clarified what those additional tabs are. So you'll see how that'll work here in a moment. But I'll go ahead and tell the AI yes to go ahead and create that test.
If you have a question.
Yeah.
So like, okay, this interface right now we are looking at is agentic like testing interface, and how do you feed in the information there? Like, are you like basically link a user story written somewhere else and feeding into this tool and letting it know what is the feature you are testing first? Like,
So in this example, it's CPQ related. So depending on where you are in the software development lifecycle, generally speaking, if you're looking into automation, well, probably don't have anything created. But what's going to be most important to begin with testing is going to be the things that are crucial for, your application. New features, user stories, there likely are going to be some use cases that you want to continue to utilize for regression. But oftentimes, as new features, well, they're generally tested manually up front, and then you build the automation afterward. It's for speed's sake. You can build the automation up front and then go ahead and have that be the way that you test it initially. But generally, if you're using code to test, that's going to take a little bit more time than it is just test it manually that first time. It is an option to do it that way. But if you did want this to be done from a user story, what I would do is use our plan agent there to read into it. It can read into what exists inside of Jira, Azure DevOps, or Copado CI/CD. And then I can say, based on user story 1, 2, 3, write me a test plan for that. Consider positive, consider negative scenarios, or anything else. Now, in regards to the context that our AI has, one of the things that is different here is that this can also integrate directly into Salesforce. So it can read into the metadata inside your org. It knows what exists in there, knows everything that you've done to customize your specific Salesforce org. So this is really where I'm getting my context from, is just reading into Salesforce. I'm not going off of a user story, but I'm just talking about the CPQ that is in my org and the products and price book that exists there. So hopefully that clarifies a little bit.
Yeah, and also like I believe like this can be connecting with multiple different sandbox, like for example, release, staging, develop sandbox, so testing in different environment.
Exactly. So there's also this other integration here to Copado CI/CD, and this one would be able to interact with every single org that you have connected in your pipelines.
Cool. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So now we've told it yes, and what that should have done is now create that test job for us. So if I refresh this page here, it should no longer be a blank slate. It should have that entire test that it just provided here for us, which it does. So this is good. This is what we expected to happen. Now it's also asking me here if I want to go ahead and execute this test. We'll also tell this yes. So that's going to be the second tab that I had open here, where we saw there were 4 records or 4 runs that happened for this previously. So when this finishes, the agent should go in and actually run this test directly here for us. And I'll show you what that actually is going to do here as well. So this is going to run headlessly. It's just going to run that behind the scenes here for us. But I'll show you what this automation is that it has built here as well once this finishes and actually performs this execution here in our behalf. So looks like it just uploaded it here again. Yes, I want you to execute it. So I guess I wasn't specific enough when I said it yes a second time. It looks like it just created it a second time versus actually running it here for me. But yes, go ahead and execute that. So this should now actually execute that test here for me. So again, AI being AI, doing AI things. Now if I refresh this, the AI has built the test and it now is running it, and then it can also report back to me. But just to show you what that test did, inside of robotic testing, we can also view the test while this runs. So this live testing window here, it's used for both building your test as well as being able to see them work in live time. So to show you what this automation will look like, again, this is running behind the scenes, but to show you this up front as well, we'll go ahead and execute it here in the live testing window. So this is what the Copado robotic test would look like here. In regards to the way our steps are set up over here on the left-hand side, it's written out as if it's a manual test. So click text we want to click, type text, what field we want to type this in, and the value we want to do. So the way that our tests are designed, it is as if it was written by a manual tester. It's not written in code like Java or Selenium. We're not using technical locators like XPath to go ahead and reference what we want to interact with. This makes it simplistic to read, build, but also makes it very resilient to change. So one of the hardest parts about automating Salesforce is its dynamic nature, 3 releases per year, new elements, things move around. This causes maintenance in regards to the automation. So this makes it simpler. But as you can see, just with that one prompt that I gave it, since our AI is able to integrate into the org, get the context of the metadata, knows the way the application is set up, it can create tests that are accurate as to how the application is set up. And the reason why I chose CPQ here is because CPQ is actually one of those platforms that is more complex than just about anything out there to build automation with because of the shadow DOM. But as you saw here, just by giving it a single prompt to go through and build out the test, it does just that. It ran it. We can also see that execution that the AI triggered here for us is also passed. It only took about a minute to do that. But what's really cool about this is that we created one test. But again, if we're talking about CPQ or any application that's been around for years, one test is nothing. There could be thousands of tests or hundreds of tests that I need to do. CPQ is one of those examples where there literally are hundreds of different scenarios or thousands that you have to test just because you own this application. Now, AI is really great about things like this, being able to extend that test coverage significantly. And I'm going to do that very easily here. Just going to give it a prompt. Now, based on the products in my workspace, so again, inside of here, we can create workspace documents. So our AI has access to metadata, doesn't have access to data. So what I did was I just did a query inside of my org previously. I had the AI give it to me to capture the products that I have, their pricing, their bundles, things of that nature, and just provide that as a workspace document. So again, as one of those other 5 C's, I gave it additional context that it needs to be helpful for me, giving it those products. But what I did here was I asked it to create 15 different variations of the same test with different products, bundles, quantities, and discounts in the form of a CSV. So in automation, I created one test, but I can use that one test to test a multitude of different other things by use of data-driven testing. And data-driven testing basically is taking the same set of steps, feeding in a different set of data, and allowing it to do something different off of that. So in the case of Salesforce CPQ, well, I have different price books, I have different products, different pricing rules. Maybe some discounts require a manager's approval, maybe others require a director's approval. Well, all of that can be handled with one test. I just need to feed it in different data and allow it to run based on how it needs to be done. So basically, I could take the CSV that it provided here for me, inject that into Copado Robotic Testing on that same test, and once that is done, this is what that would look like. I have these data configurations on my test runs. So there's different products, different quantities, different discounts. This one has 2 products it's working with. This one has 3 products it's working with. But if I click Run Test Job here, this will run all of those permutations for me. It's based off of what AI created here for us. So now, instead of running one test, I'm running 15. So in the analogy that I gave earlier of a washing machine, I can clean my clothes manually, but if I'm a hotel and I have hundreds of rooms that I need to clean all that laundry for, it's an impossible task for me to get through. But in that same scenario, if I have washing machines and multiple of them, just throw them all in them, walk away, and continue on with my day. That's exactly what I did here. Created one scenario, one automation, use that. Then I fed it in with data sets, and now I'm just letting Copado Robotic Testing run all of those at the same time for me, like having 15 washing machines take care of 15 loads of laundry simultaneously. The benefit of that is, instead of me having to go one by one with these, each of these in our automation takes roughly a minute, maybe a minute and a half to run. So if I had to run all of these one by one, and there's only 15 here right now, it'd be about 30 minutes. But by running them all at the same time, I'm going to know my results within 2 minutes. Now, let's scale that out farther. Again, CPQ, I can have thousands of different scenarios that I need to test. That could be hours, that could be days, that could be weeks, especially from a manual perspective. But I could throw all of that into automation, and the moment we make a deployment, like it was talked about earlier, I could have that as part of my deployment process to run my automation with that. And now as a developer, I know within an hour or two if what we've just changed has introduced any new bugs. And this is the power that automation gives you. You can test more, you can test faster, and you get your results much sooner, allowing you to shift left with your approach. I'm going to show you guys one more thing here, just in regards to what this context can also do in regards to automation, especially with other things that exist inside of your org. I heard Agentforce come up a few times at the start of the meeting, so I'll show you how we can handle that. But before we jump into that, are there any questions that I could take at this time? I know I've covered quite a bit already.
But I just wanted to praise you for choosing washing machine because these spinners that were spinning are exactly washing machine case. Good
True
job.
that. Thanks.
Dieter, how this looks?
Looks nice. I have a question about how do you delete the data you produced in the org?
Yeah, no, that is a
Is
fantastic question.
You just add
So
it to the section.
there's a few ways that we can do this. And again, test agent, just going to use my AI companion. So I can say what all data will be created when creating a CPQ quote in my org and with this test. And how would I delete this data? Whether, if I could spell, would that be with API or Apex? So now Test Agent could tell me exactly what data or records would get created and how I could delete them from an automated perspective. But in my example where I ran those 15 scenarios together all at once, I actually have that configured in already. So what I have here is an API call to delete the opportunity record. So this is capturing the record ID. If there are any PDF files that are created, I'm using Apex to go through and delete those. So let's just do any of them. You can make it more specific. If there's any orphaned attachments, Apex again. If I need to purge it from my recycle bin, here's Apex to handle that. But I didn't write any of that. I had Test Agent do that for me directly. So we can see here, this has gathered the information about what potentially would have to get deleted as part of that. So it's got the objects names here. It's got the information. So it would be our opportunity, the quote, the products, and then this is what I would need here. So basically what this has provided me was a query to gather any opportunities that have this name. In my case, I just took it from the record as part of my test, but I think you can get where this is going. Then we delete the lines, we delete the quote lines, delete the quotes, delete the opportunity, so on and so forth. And this is telling me what REST APIs would be applicable, SOCWOL and Salesforce CLI. So it's giving me 3 different options that I could take, one being Apex, one being API, and one being CLI. So yeah, it can be handled a multitude of ways, just really depends on the use case. You can also do it in the UI. I generally prefer to do it in the back end because it's quicker and more reliable that way.
What kind of access level the test agent has in all?
So the test agent has no access to your org. It has the ability to read into the metadata, and that's it. So it actually cannot do anything inside of that org or access any data. Copado Robotic Testing, on the other hand, does have access. And the access that this would have is based off the user that you are running the automation with.
If in some situation, like the test need to be, for example, a real person in QA need to log in as different user, multiple users in a one single test, so the agent can handle that.
Absolutely. Yep, so I can come over here and say, how do I test under different users in Salesforce? And there's a couple ways you can do this. Again, just going to have test agent spit out the answer, but you can use a keyword called login as, and basically if you're using a user like an admin who has the ability to impersonate, that will just impersonate that user. You can also use JWT to just connect directly in with that given user, or I just want to sign in with that other user at that time. Well, I can have the automation go to the UI, sign out, sign in, use that username and password. So there's a multitude of different ways that that can be done in regards to it. If you need more than one user, you can have 2 different browsers open at the same time, logged in with one, logged in with the other in the other browser.
In theory, you're telling us we can run same tests set of tests using the logging as different users for different personas and
Yep.
see if it's going to fail for different group of users?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, so it's pretty simple to do. So right now, go ahead.
One question, sorry, Joe.
One more question in release management. When you write your tests for the first sandbox, you want to transfer it for the next sandbox where it's changed. So I have version 10 in the first environment, and after the deployment, I want version 11 in the next one. Do you have something like revisioning and to know which test is running? Because if I develop in sandbox A and deploy it on the RQA or TA, then the test should be moved also to the next level. So
Yeah.
do I have any release management included?
Yep. Yeah, so with our solution for DevOps, it's handled automatically. So it'll sign in with the proper credentials for the given environment where we made that deployment and then run the applicable tests there. For other solutions, you can still integrate this as part of that the pipeline. It just would be performed with webhook, and you could provide, a variable or some kind of data set to specify we're testing in this environment with this user, or however we want to do it that way. In regards to the versioning for the test, it is handled through external solutions like Git or Bitbucket, and in this way we can version the different variations of that test. So if a new feature comes out, I need to update the test based on that. I can do that, and then GitHub would be storing the versioning of my test in that way.
Okay, so in Git, I label it and it's going to the CI pipeline.
Yep.
With the other, okay.
I have another question. So I have a pinpoint at work is like level up, but basically like to precondition all the different dev org and also release org like basic precondition everything into the same level. Preceding and the preconditioning them, like all the make sure, because sometimes like it's one org probably can be a little bit off with other different org, and for whatever reason. So is there any like thinking into that, like to say like, okay, these two can precondition preceding every testing sandbox
But
environment?
if I can just to understand,
Yeah.
you wanna sync one environment to be like another one?
Not
Is this preconditioning or?
yeah, not thinking, but to you can see that thinking like to like
level them up to
exactly.
the same?
Yeah.
Okay. My opinion is, this is another agent on the Joe can show us. It's called release management. Because
Okay.
what you're talking is about getting same release everywhere.
Yeah.
Conditioning release
Yeah.
versions.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Is this
Yeah,
correct
yeah.
when I explain?
Yeah.
Okay, Joe.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Nash, you're spot on about that. So, a robotic testing solution, that would not be what you would use for that. But again, our AI could be leveraged with that. And our DevOps solution as well also has environment sync to make sure these environments stay up to date. But if this is a testing condition, this data needs to exist in this environment for us to be able to run this test. That is applicable to Copado Robotic Testing. So, we can use APIs to stage that data, create it, so this way the environment's ready for the test to go ahead and run.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Good to know.
Yeah.
And when you refer to this, you are referring to CSV files that can be used to seed environment. Is this correct?
it could be done that way. We can use Apex bulk operations, feed in a bunch of data records that need to be done. So it can really be handled a multitude of ways, but commonly speaking, using something like a CSV file just to go ahead and say, these are the records we need to get created, have an API call run through them. That's a very common way to handle it.
Is there anything in your suite of tools like I want you to create me, a million contact records with random obfuscated names that are not real names and email addresses and things like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you can do that pretty easily. So I can say, what is the quickest and easiest way to create, I don't know, 5,000 contact records in Salesforce with CRT? And likely it would just tell me to use Apex bulk in this or to go ahead and create those. It's going to be one or maybe a few to go through that versus looping through 5,000 API calls to create all of those. But yeah, we can definitely handle that either way. So let's see here, import records with a JSON file. And so it's probably going to give me a couple different ways. So this is what it would look like in the script for Copado. It's going to go through and loop into that. Looks like it's using a batch. So yeah, that's going to do that through Apex. And then this is what that cleanup would look like for that. But yeah, these types of things can be done. This is what it would look like using the API call. So like mentioned, it's one at a time. But if we do it this way, it could take up to 200 of these all at the same time. So it's much quicker doing that in a batch versus a single API in a loop.
Yeah, thank you. Dieter, you have a question? No?
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Perfect. All right, so I'll touch on one last thing here and I'll go ahead and wrap up after that. So Agentforce was brought up a couple of times and this is one of those things that when it first came my way, I was curious too. I'm like, well, how are people going to test these things and how are you going to build test automation around it? But it's actually become much easier here with AI, especially with it having context directly into the org, a test agent. So I'll show you how I would work through this. And again, having the AI really simplifies this process. So again, since our AI has the ability to read into the metadata, the way that I would start this off is just have our AI tell me how this agent works, what it's designed to do, and tell me the conversations it can have. So all I've done here is I've given it the API name of the agent that I want to test. I've asked it to gather what flows this agent is using and how it may be utilized, then to give me a conversation to have with this agent. Now this conversation to have with this agent is kind of like the baseline for my test plan. Now once I get that, I can then also ask it to tell me every conversation this agent's capable of having. And what's nice about that is, well, it's first gathering the context of what this agent can do, and then expanding into that. It's kind of similar to the other scenario with CPQ. Created one test, and we expanded that test coverage. We're going to do that same thought process here, and this is how that's going to work. Gather the information, give me that one happy path test, and based off of that, let's look at all these other scenarios that can also be automated, that should be automated based on that. So now it's giving us the information about this agent, and these are the flows it's using. So it's getting this is actually the one on Trailhead. So it's the Coral Cloud Resort if you've gone through and created that one in the past. First thing that this agent should do is figure out who you are with your email and membership number. After that, it should get the experience details, summarizing the name, description, activity level, and the type. Then from there, it should get the sessions available. So if you want to book for it, is there availability on the date you want to? If so, create the booking. And this is what that decision work tree would look like. So this can give me visualizations to understand how this works. Again, here's what a sample conversation would look like. Hi, how can I help you? I'd like to book this. Ask for the email address, provides the details, books it, so on and so forth.
Hey, Joe,
I have a task set up. Go ahead.
Can you scroll to diagram a little?
Mhm.
Hey, Stuart, do you have in your tool that produce this as a result of your agent design?
Yeah. So we can have it
Is
create
that-
visual aids for us, like mermaid diagrams. Maybe want to have an entity relationship diagram. Go ahead.
So, what, for a diagram like this, I would go to something like ChatGPT or Claude and have it do it. Probably ChatGPT because it does a better job with it.
And it will read your agent and produce this?
No, I probably have do like some sort of markdown file of what it's going to do, pass it to ChatGPT to draft the process flow.
Okay, Joe.
Like, but that changes. Like that's just because it does a better job with visualization today. Next month it'll probably be somebody different.
No, I understand this part, but I'm just trying to see benefits of this chart because
You're saying.
check.
all one tool, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to check with Joe. Joe, this is direct result of agent definition in your org. Is this correct?
Correct. Yep. And we can get these types of diagrams for anything. So entity relationship diagrams to know how various objects are related, our flows are working. But yeah, this is directly available through our AI. We are using Claude behind the scenes.
Okay, thank you. But this is good thing in my opinion because you don't have to do all those things from time to time to do it. You just come here and see what is recent version doing.
Absolutely.
This is really cool, like to give you a,
This is another AI use that I like.
yeah. Now you get excited.
But it's cool.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it just pushed into Confluence on a regular basis.
This is idea, so
Yeah.
Cool.
go ahead.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead. Is there a question?
No, keep going.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
they're smiling. You may not see it. You know.
Yeah, I can't see the faces. It's like looking at ants right now. It's really small on my screen. But yeah, so what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and proceed here forward with this. So we've seen what this said this agent should do. Now let's go ahead and test it and make sure that it does work in that way. So I'll show you how we can go ahead and handle the testing for this. And then after we see this test, we'll give it the scenario we have. We'll ask it to expand the coverage past that point. So the scenario that we'll be going through is happy path with one negative testing in this. Now, the way that Copado handles Agentforce testing, we handle the full end-to-end testing of it, as well as the multi-channel facet of it. So unlike Agentforce Testing Center, where it's more so the unit testing, it can do the multi-turn testing, but it can't go past that. It can't do the end-to-end testing of it. We can. And we utilize an independent judge as part of this test. So what's difficult about testing these agents is they are non-deterministic. Adam talked about this a little bit earlier. Anytime you talk with AI, it is going to respond slightly different. But automation is designed to do the exact same thing every single time. It removes that human error. So that was what I found really interesting about testing these agents. But the way that we've handled this is we've introduced AI to perform these validations here. So instead of me saying, did it say this exactly? I can do it more loosely. So for example, in its first response, it was 95% similar to what I expected. In regards to its next response, it was 78% similar. So we have the ability to add thresholds to say, I want it to be this similar or this similar, otherwise it fails. But also in addition to that, outside of just making sure, is it talking to me correctly? One of the other things that we really care about is it doing the things that we care about? So in the case of interacting with Coral Cloud and booking resorts or experiences, did it actually book that record in Salesforce for me? So that's what we offer in regards to this, is that we're not only the conversation can we validate that it's going through things correctly, but is it also going into Salesforce and gathering or creating and modifying those records in the correct way. So after we finish this conversation and AI has validated everything, we're going to go ahead and take this into Salesforce and validate, were those records created? Do they have the right results here for us? And so as part of this, there's actually a couple of queries that ran behind the scenes to find that record, navigate us directly into it. We can see it has correctly booked the right experience for the right contact for the right number of guests. It is confirmed. And the session itself has 2 slots that have been booked as we expected based on our given use case. So in this way, we've handled the testing of it, but that's not even the full challenge of testing these agents. The big challenge comes into the scale. What about all the other conversations this can have? What if someone talks to it differently? What if they talk to it in slang? What if they put in typos? What if they just give it completely irrelevant responses? What does the agent do then? So that's where the power of our test agent comes in. So what I could do here is give test agent my test and say, here is the test for the scenario you laid out. Now give me the test for every possible conversation this agent can have. But also create a CSV for me to add slang, typos, erroneous conversations, etc. This way we can ensure the agent continues to behave correctly. So again, kind of similar to the previous scenario, I had AI build one scenario for me, and then I had
Great.
data drive that into multitudes more. It's basically what we're doing here. Is there a question?
Question. You see, you will notice I like to question things. Same as Dieter, he is my backup. Is this CSV file in the same structure like test center CSV file that they're giving you template there?
Yeah, so really as long as it's a CSV, it's fine. And I don't even have to do that part. So the other thing is right here on the left-hand side, I have this option for data tables. And with these data tables, the AI can be embedded directly inside of this. So I can go in here and say, edit data table, and then I could say, here, we'll just do this. We'll take the initial conversation that this gave me. Oh, wait, wrong tab, this one. And then I could just copy this in, plug this in over here, and then say, create 15 different ways of having this conversation. So in this way, I don't even have to create a CSV. I can just have Copado AI generate that data directly here for me and put that into a data table. But with the CSV file from test agent, it does not lose that context. So it stays more contextually aware of the scenario that I'm working with, continues on from that thread that I was working off of there. And then I could just upload that. So there are more ways that you can handle that, but any CSV, as long as it is in CSV format, you can upload directly in here and it'll parse that in and plug that in as a data table. And then we could use that just like I showed you in the example of CPQ.
And this data table is in database that is hosted on the same server like this.
Yeah.
This tool that we are using.
Yes. So it is stored in the cloud in Copado Robotic Testing. So if we click into any of these are all the data sets that I had set up for CPQ. I have a total of 100 here. So again, I could run a lot of permutations of that. But yeah, this would all be hosted directly in our platform here for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I'll come back here and just show you, what test agent provided, and I'll wrap things up there. I know we're getting towards the end of time here, but we can see this went through and created a multitude of different scenarios for us. Happy Path full booking, going through it from the API standpoint, experience inquiry only, personalized schedule generation, a knowledge base Q&A, credentials authentication failure, so using the wrong email address and the wrong membership number, no available slots, fully booked, so on and so forth. And then again, here's the data set that this created for us. So you can see it threw in erroneous error data here as well. So this way we can plug in a multitude of different scenarios. Looks like there's even one here in Spanish. I think this is French. So again, being able to test these agents in a multitude of ways versus what a human can really comprehend and throw at this. I wouldn't be able to create all these different edge cases and unique different ways of testing this, but AI throwing in these different errors, these different typos, the slang as part of this. This is ensuring that we get tons of different coverage to ensure any way a human would interact with this can get covered here for us. So I'll go ahead and wrap things up here. I was going to kind of walk through where you guys should start from an automation journey and move into things there. But with the remainder of time, I'll just open up to Q&A for final thoughts. Anyone else has anything they'd like to ask or add to the conversation here? And I'll hand things back to you, Nash.
Thank you, Joe. I enjoyed Joe's presentation. Because radio voice, can you everybody agree with me? If you get in trouble with Joe, you can apply radio station.
Appreciate that.
Okay, any questions for Joe? And I will stop recording, Joe.
So you mentioned the behind the scene, the AI is a cloud.